We are live. Well, welcome everybody. I'm so excited for our conversation tonight. And I want to thank all of you for dedicating some time out of your evening to join me and a very special guest for what I know is going to be an inspiring and insightful and an actionable conversation. And I'm so excited to share him with all of you. So tonight's guest, guys, we are in for a treat. You're going to get a chance to hear from an individual that is an international speaker, a 17-time author, someone that started out his early career actually law school bound, something that I can relate with, graduated law school, but then made the very quick pivot into entrepreneurship. A serial entrepreneur, started his first business at age 16. Fast forward today, he's actually founded and created over 40 different companies. So a true entrepreneur's entrepreneur, and someone who's most known today in the space as the creator behind what he calls mind types, which we're going to get a chance to get into in today's conversation, which is a fascinating method that combines a full program that encapsulates emotional intelligence, brain biology, and what he calls limbic messaging, which is totally fascinating for us entrepreneurs and marketers out there, into a method that everybody, every one of us out there can use and apply to solve problems in our own life, take our marketing and our messaging to a whole new level, and build an amazing culture within our communities and the organizations that we are leading. So, today most people know him as a mastermind that usually is around kind of C-level executives working and helping organizations grow. But I have the privilege of actually knowing this individual, and probably most important to me in the list of accolades, a personal mentor, someone I've known for almost 20 years now, someone that was one of my original and first mentors and had a massive, massive impact on kind of my personal life trajectory in the early years and still to date. And someone that I'm proud to call a friend now of decades that I get to introduce to all of you in tonight's conversation. So with that, I get a chance to bring on our special guest for tonight, coming out of Pensacola, Florida, Ridgely Goldsborough. Ridgely, how you doing, brother?
Man, I couldn't be happier to be here. And I can't believe that all those years ago, decades back, you were here in Pensacola early on in your career. And we had a beautiful weekend retreat, kind of doing some personal growth, some personal development. And I'm so proud of everything you've accomplished and delighted to be here with you.
I remember that very, very well, and so many memories. And I'm just glad we were able to do this conversation. I know we've been trying to get together for a few weeks. I've been super excited to share kind of you and your wealth of knowledge with my community. And I know first time we had it scheduled, you got hit by a hurricane.
I know, right? Wiped out Pensacola, 30 inches of rain in 36 hours. It was a disaster out there. Sorry I missed that one, man, but I'm so glad to be here now.
How many hurricanes have you lived through out there in Pensacola now?
Three big ones so far, a category 5, a category 3, and a category 2. The category 2, though, was the one that was ridiculous because it was moving at 2 miles an hour. You're moving at 2 miles an hour, that's when you get 30 inches of rain in 36 hours. And for most people, it's hard to comprehend. If that were snow, that would have been 30 feet of snow in a day and a half.
30 feet of snow in a day of, that's crazy.
Yeah, right?
I'm just absorbing all of that. Like I couldn't even imagine. I mean, here in California, everybody thinks we're crazy, right? Because we live through earthquakes. But when I see the news and those giant storm swirls like heading toward Florida, do you still get rattled and scared when it's heading your way? Or it's like you've lived through enough of them, it's a part of life? I'm curious.
It's one of those things where you have to remind yourself that this is no joke. Right? That you have to pay attention because people that don't pay attention get killed or have really bad things happen to them. So no, we don't get scared, but we definitely get like, oh man, really? Again? Okay, what do we got to do? Bring all the plants in, do the stuff. Do you have the gear? Is your generator, all that stuff? Not scared, aware.
Aware. I like it. Well, I'm glad you're safe. I'm glad your family's safe. I'm glad
Thank
your
you.
house this time is safe. And I'm really glad that we get a chance to spend some time tonight. And I'm super excited about this conversation. I went digging, Ridge, because I think it's 20 years. I'm really bad at time, but like I think it's probably at 20 years or near 20 years when we first met. Does that sound about right?
Yeah, I think you're right. I think it might even be a little more than 20 years.
It might be just over, which is a long time. And I went back, and I know you can't see it here, but I'm in my home office, and right here to my right is a giant bookshelf where I have all my journals, like my leather bound journals through the year. And I went back and grabbed like one of my very, very first ones. And I just started flipping through it kind of this week in preparation for this conversation. And I'd say probably like half of everything in here I got from you, either in personal conversations or calls or events or from stage. And I think this will probably make you laugh. Do you remember this one?
I can't believe you still have that, dude. That's amazing. Getting Happy and Rich, my first book ever. Oh, geez.
I think this might have been one of the first editions of the first book. I'm looking at it.
It is the first edition, man. It moved to looking a little more professional like this. You got the early version, bro. Wow.
I got the OG copyright 2002, right? So
man.
And amazing. But you know, I got a bunch of the oldies here, and you know, I don't know if I ever told you this personally, but I consider you, you know, my first real mentor in business, first real mentor in entrepreneurship, first real mentor in life. And you know, I don't know. I never had a chance really to say thank you. So I just want to say thank you for all the time and energy you invested into me and a lot of my community back then. I appreciate it.
You know what? I remember driving down to San Diego when you were still in school down there and having your initial meetings. Remember those?
Yeah.
And we'd have them in rooms and whatever. And I'd be like, oh my God. And then I'd come find you guys. Okay, now what if we did this? What if we did this? What if we did this? Just trying to tweak things just a little bit. Obviously, what you guys have accomplished has been absolutely incredible. But I remember all the way back to those early days when it's like, okay, shh, Ridgely, shut up. Go help. Shut up. Go help. No critiques, only help. That's the only things allowed here. And look at what you've accomplished. So, hey, I guess sometimes it works.
Oh, no, I mean, I owe you so much. Is it okay if I share a story that I don't even know if you'll remember?
Of course. Knock yourself out. I'm a little scared, but go ahead.
No, so I mean, obviously, you know, a lot of people will probably end up listening to this either on the live or through the podcast. And you know, ultimately, I know there's a lot of individuals that are probably entrepreneurs. A lot of people from, you know, what I would call the community-based marketing, you know, direct selling industry. And obviously, when we met, it was the industry that brought us together. But I don't know if you know this. I think you were the first person in my life that I was ever on like an accountability program with. And I don't remember the full context, but I remember you were selecting like certain individuals from the whole company and kind of taking them under your wing and giving like extra personal attention. And I was privileged to accept that invitation from you. And I remember, you know, we were on like some sort of like daily method of operation, some like, you know, certain amount of things we had to do every day. And I remember one of them was I had to talk to 3 people a day before I went to bed. And I had to talk to you before I went to bed, right, every night, and just kind of check in. And it was 3 people a day. It was a consistency and of activity type of you know, daily discipline. And I remember one night I was going to school in San Diego, as you know. UCSD, for those of you guys out there, pretty academic school, especially during that time. It was midterm time. I was burnt. I'd spent, you know, a lot of time studying. I had a test the next morning. It was super late. And you called me while I was laying in bed in my dorm room. And you were checking in and you just asked, like, you know, how's it going? How was your day? Did you get your 3? And I remember in that moment, like saying in my head, I know I didn't. In my head, I had every excuse of, man, it's midterms. I got a test tomorrow. And in my head, I was like, should I lie? Like, should I say that I did? And I didn't lie. I said, no, I'm in the middle of midterms. And I don't remember exactly what you said, but you said something along the lines of like putting it back on me, like you're so good at, where you're like, you know, hey, it's your commitment. It's your goals. It's your vision. You know, you can do what you want. And you didn't like guilt me, but like you put it back on me and kind of hung up. And I hung up the phone. I got out of bed I went to the college intranet. At the time, there was like a college IM, like an intranet system. And I just started spamming the college intranet. Do you want to make extra money? Do you want to make extra money? Do you want to make extra money to anybody that was up? Until I got, one more person, which is all I needed. I had 2 for the day. I needed 1 that finally said, sure. And I said, give me your number. I'll call you tomorrow. Right. And I went to bed. And in hindsight, like, who the heck is answering that question? Do you want to make some extra money, like late at night on a college campus? And they said, sure. And I ended up, going to bed, and I was like, okay, I did it. And the next day, Ridge, I skateboarded to that person's dorm room and met with them. And they ended up getting involved in our business at the time. And his name was Rich Paula. And you know Richie Rich.
Of course.
And Rich ended up becoming, as you might remember, one of my largest business partners. He ended up actually becoming the individual that introduced me to some of my business partners later on in life that formed our company. And ultimately one of my best friends, was in my wedding. We're still in touch today. And I'll never forget that lesson, because, had you not made that call, put it back on me, made me make that decision, and I hadn't gone out there and gone on the internet, skateboarded and met, so much of my life would be different. And I don't know, I just never shared that story with you, but that was you that made that happen, and definitely a valuable lesson in having a mentor in your life.
Well, thank you very much for sharing that, brother. Because and I want to just point out to everybody that's listening or watching how real that lesson is. Are you willing, as Jim Rohn, my mentor, said so many times, are you willing to make one more call than everybody else so that you make one more connection? And you don't know which one it is. It could be call number 1, or it could be call number 101. But if you make those calls, the law of averages absolutely plays into your favor. And if you hold yourself accountable, as you did, congratulations, amazing things happen. And Richie Paula is such an amazing individual. I mean, in addition to being a great business partner, what a great guy. You might have never met the dude. You know what I'm saying? Great guy to hang out with, a great guy to play with, just a tremendous individual all around.
He is. Rich, if you end up listening or watching this, love you, brother. And but that story, Ridge, has always been in my mind of exactly what you said, just kind of the importance of going the extra mile and doing what you said, and also just having a mentor. Because if you weren't in my life, and holding me to a higher standard, I wouldn't have done that. I'm curious, because you've mentored so many people now throughout your career. Is there something you look for in the people you put time into? I'm sure there's more people asking for your time than you have time to give. Like, how do you choose who you invest, like, your time, your energy, your life into? I'm just curious.
So it's a great question, and not an easy question, because it's very easy to say at the top of the list is desire, right? That somebody's going to actually follow through, that they're going to do what they say they're going to do. And I'll tell people all the time, I'm never afraid to give someone my cell phone number, because so few people ever call. And that's a sad state of affairs, when at the end of the day, you have to seek out mentors in order to be successful. I have them in every area of my life, and always will, always seeking them out whatever I can. And sometimes it flips around. Now Blake is a mentor to me in many ways, in the same way. But in terms of answering your question, so yes, desire is at the top of the list, but there's also that certain je ne sais quoi, which in French means I'm not sure exactly what that is, that little element of magic. Do you see something? Does someone have the eye of the tiger that is like, wait a second, okay, this person is serious. It's not just lip service. Because there's no question that success leaves clues, and that, of course, we can knock our head against the wall and try to bust our head through the wall, or eventually you can have somebody say, hey, let me show you how to open the door. You can just walk through and make things a lot easier. So I don't think it's an easy answer. There's a certain gut feeling too that goes along with it. So I think it's a combination of, does someone show the desire and seek? Does someone have the eye of the tiger? And then there's that little element of magic that you sort of get, like, okay, this one, maybe. And by the way, I have the same experience with the mentors that I was able to select before, that I'm like, how did you pick me? Why did I get to be a part of this? And I've never had anybody quite be able to explain that to me, actually.
I love it. Say it in French again.
Je ne sais quoi.
I'm not even going to attempt to repeat that, but I like the way it sounds. The little extra, the magic touch. So for those of you guys out there that are in a role where maybe you have more people asking for your time than you have time to give, I think Ridge gives some great insight on where you invest it. Ridge, what about for people that are actively looking for a mentor right now? And any guidance? There's a lot of shift going on. There's a lot of transition going on. There's a lot of people, making pivots in their life that maybe are wanting to learn new things, go a different direction. Any guidance you would give for someone out there that's like, oh man, I've never had a Ridgely, or I've never had a Jim Rohn, right? I've never had access to these type of people, where they might start to find one?
Yeah, man. So I have 3 thoughts on that, and they're all kind of a little in your face. Is that okay?
You go for it.
Okay. So first one is, your net worth is your network. Your network is your net worth, right? So who are you associating yourself with that can tap you into sources of individuals who operate at a higher level, at a higher plane, and therefore you can participate with that. Number 2 is, you've got to join groups. You have to be a part of networking groups, masterminds. Go to somewhere where there are people who are where you want to be, and participate. Get engaged, participate fully. Masterminds are so huge. There's a lot of them out there, and be willing to invest in the mastermind a little bit, whether it's time, resources, a little bit of money sometimes, whatever it takes to be a part of that. And then number 3, and I think this is the toughest one for most people like myself, and now, and at this point, I believe yourself as well, Blake, we want to help people who want to be helped. Part of being a human being is, what is my contribution on this planet? What am I doing to make the world a better place after I leave? Who can I share what somebody shared with me that can stand on my shoulders and stand on their shoulders and make this a giant success all the way up the chain? So ask people, are you available? Can you help me? Is there something? Is there a way we could talk? Sometimes the answer is, I'm sorry, not really. But if you don't ask, for sure the answer is no. So please just be willing to get courageous. Courage is a weird word, man. Check this out. So since you had the French thing a little bit earlier, cœur means heart. So courage is age of the heart. So tap into your heart space and bring out some courage in French, and speak to somebody. Ask them, hey, Blake, I'm really looking for a mentor. If can I buy you lunch once every 2 months? Can I show up? Would you be willing to show up with me? I mean, if somebody sincerely came to you and you had the feeling that they were for real, how would you feel about that?
You asking me personally?
Yeah.
I mean, that's why we do what we do, right? And I love the way you put that. It's like, it's why we do what we do, is because we are really passionate about, helping somebody see their potential, move to the potential. And I love the way you said it. It's the power of the ask, but the reality that very few people ask. So the ones that do ask generally are the ones that do get the time and the attention. So I totally agree with what you're saying.
100%, man. And it's not like it's complicated. That doesn't mean it's easy. Right. So I was reading Jim Rohn this morning, and you know how close I am to Jim and a huge experience with that. And we're talking about that one famous quote that I just cherished since forever. There are 2 types of pain: the pain of discipline and the pain of regret. The pain of discipline weighs ounces. The pain of regret weighs tons. The pain of discipline is temporary. You do what you got to do for a small amount of time. The pain of regret lasts forever. And if you put in the discipline to do what you've got to do today that others won't do, you end up having tomorrow what others will never have.
I love that. So for everybody that's watching or listening to this right now, maybe look at it through both lenses that you're hearing kind of Ridgely lay out. One is, maybe there's people in your life that need a mentor that you can help. Right. And go find somebody that has that desire, that has that extra X factor, right? Someone you can pour energy into, because at the end of the day, that's what it's about, is giving, serving, contributing, developing. But also, if you're in a state right now where you want to level up, right? You want to make a shift, right? You want to go in a different direction. There's people out there, right? So go find the network that you want to surround yourself with. Ask. I love it, Ridge, your suggestion of, hey, just can I buy a, lunch? Something so simple separates you from everybody out there. Maybe you go a different direction, Ridge. We talked a little bit about, again, I use the term today, kind of community-based marketing, but I know a lot of times direct sales or affiliate marketing or network marketing, it's almost like today, all these different models are kind of getting mashed together into almost something new, but obviously that's both of our roots, right? So when we met, when I was, first getting started in the industry as a young entrepreneur, a sales rep in a telecom company, and at that time you were just coming off, I think you had owned, what was it? The largest store shelf magazine for the whole industry at that time. You were the publisher.
Mm-hmm. I was. Yeah, I was. That was among those. So what you mentioned, I started over 40 companies, 44 to be precise, 2 of them quite successful, 3 or 4 moderately successful, and the rest highly educational. And that owning a magazine was one of those highly educational experiences that I would not necessarily recommend for others, but the connections that came out of that catapulted me into other places. So yes, I was just emerging from a challenging time, so to speak.
But I saw it. I mean, just the opposite of the perspective at that time. I was like, oh, wow. I mean, the perspective you were able to have, right, being an industry voice. And now fast forward, for me, it's 21 years in this, channel. For you, I know it's more, right? So we're talking decades of our life. And, I'm curious because you've been on all different sides now, both actively building businesses, consulting for companies, industry voice, now today, I'm sure you get a lot of people that come through your masterminds and workshops. I'm just curious your perspective, however many decades it is for you, just on, direct sales, community-based marketing as a business, maybe especially now when the whole work from home is almost a necessity. I'm curious, just your perspective.
So I think that any industry that involves learning how to communicate and share great things with other human beings, by definition, is awesome. By definition, like, let's just start with the basic premise. Hey, I find something that I really have experienced as being powerful and effective, and I go and share that with my friends. It's absolutely natural. It's very organic, and it works. So let's start from that premise, number 1. Number 2, any industry that enables you to become a better human being means that every ounce of investment that you make into that industry is contributing to your life, no matter what your fiscal results in the short term. And everybody starts wherever they start. There's no, oh, well, if you start here and you do this, you get this by this date, but it doesn't work like that. It's wherever you start is where you start. Whatever you need to learn is what you need to learn. But if at the end of the day, it's how do you become a better communicator? How do you become a better leader? And eventually that inevitably pays off with financial rewards that are not really, it's not about the bank account. It's about the personal development, professional growth that you have realized as a human being and your ability to communicate the effectiveness of whatever it is that you're representing. So from that perspective, to me, it doesn't get any better than that. It's like, hey, man, how good can you become at being a leader, at being yourself, at leading you? So that night when you called Richie Pala, you were the leader of Blake Mallon Enterprises, and you got out of bed and you went and you took the effort and you ended up with an incredible partner, an effort that most people would never do, which is why they're following you today, because you are an example of what is possible when people step up, step out, and do what they got to do. So to me, the industry of direct sales and community marketing is phenomenal because it enables anybody to start no matter where you are, and you can grow into becoming that communicator, becoming that leader, becoming one of the people who helps people through the products and services that you represent, and obviously doing the research to make sure that they're ethical and work and all of that is important. But beyond that, it's human to human communication. And if you become really good at that, there's no stopping you.
I love that. And so true. So many people get fixated or limited on the tangible results. Like you said, the dollars in a bank account or, commas on my check. But so often we undervalue the intangible results. And I think education is probably one of the biggest like intangibles with the highest value in everything. Like that's what it got me hooked. It wasn't the dollars. It's like, oh my gosh, it was the first time I started learning about this whole different genre of education, right? Business and mindset and leadership and emotional intelligence and financial literacy and stuff that I wasn't being taught paying a whole bunch of money in college tuition. And I fell in love with that. And because I fell in love with that, I became a different person. Because I became a different person, I got different results. And, I think people just undervalue that today. So, I don't know. Now it's cool seeing that the whole industry's up this year, which is awesome. Obviously, you and I have been talking about the benefits of working from home for decades, and now everybody kind of has to work from home. I wish we were in better circumstances, but it's awesome to see the channel growing. And for those people that are looking for, the right mentors, the right community, the right education, it's just a great channel. And I know you and I have both benefited a lot from it. So I was curious your perspective this far in.
Well, think about what's going on right now, right? So there's all this stuff, and obviously there's much more traffic online because people are at home. But being at home also means, I could watch a lot more TV. I could hang out on Netflix for hours. I can catch XYZ series about some tiger, somebody, whatever, for that dude that I've never seen any of the shows, but I keep hearing about the tiger guy, whatever, right? And watch. Because I just don't have time for that kind of stuff. No, I'm sorry. I will never make time for that kind of stuff. So you could do all of that, or you could take this time to listen to podcasts like this one and learn from people who have been successful and find out what they're doing and emulate their behavior, which in turn, inevitably, at some point, will manifest in terms of results. So I just think that yes, there is a correlation between economics being difficult on the outside, people coming to home-based businesses a little bit more than usual. There's a definite trend in that area. But I would just say to everybody that's watching, forget all those trends. What's your life look like right now? What are you doing? What are you looking to be doing? Where do you want to be? Because where you want to be a year from now is absolutely going to be determined by what you're doing today. It doesn't happen any other way. Talking about Jim Rohn, the book that I quoted from was The Seasons of Life. There are these seasons of life. And one of the things that we know is for a lot of people right now is winter, but it never fails to turn into spring. For a lot of people that are in the home-based business, right now is spring. Things are really good. And that's never going to fail to turn into summer, which means you've got a great harvest, but you better protect it. And you better pay attention, and you better not let too much sun come in or too many birds or too much rain or too much weather to wipe out your crop. And then there's no autumn and there's no harvest to move forward with, right? So it very much is the individual choice. Where are you? What are you looking to accomplish that should be driving what your behavior is, so that in turn it drives the results down the line?
I love that. And I think now 2020 is a better time than ever. There's a long list of obviously obstacles and challenges, and I want to be empathetic to all of that. I don't want to minimize the stuff that we're all going through just as humans this year. But I see value in the forced pause. Like for the first time, a lot of people have a forced pause to kind of stop. And everybody's so quick to like, when's it going to go back to normal? They're not asking like, should it go back to normal? What is your normal? What you really wanted? Or is there something better? And is now the time to make the transition? So I love the guidance that you're giving there. And I challenge all of you to take that to heart and ask yourself that question. Like, where are you at? Where are you coming from? And most importantly, who do you want to become, and what changes do we need to make, and can we make right now to go in that direction? And I know, Ridge, I want to transition this whole mind types, because I find this fascinating. And I know this is kind of right in line with maybe people that are in a transition or want to go to the next level. And before we get into it, because I definitely want to unpack this whole like limbic messaging concept. It's fascinating to me. Like I took the quiz, but before we get into like what this is, I want to do a quick rewind, because you've been in the personal growth space for a long time. You've 17 books. I've seen you deliver a ton of messages, keynotes. You could go choose to invest your life into any number of topics or categories. Give me the context of why this direction. Like how'd you get here out of everything? Like how'd you end up with mind types, if you want to give us the backstory?
So a while back, I got clear. So I was blessed to be successful fairly early on. And I got hip to the idea that I thought, man, if I get to be rich, I'll be like, well, I'll be happy. That'd be good. Kind of like, and it didn't quite work out, right? And the moment that I recognized that financial success did not equal happiness, then I began to ask myself, what's the biggest game? And the biggest game to me is human beings and the human nature and human mind and how do we work? How do we operate? And if we can master that piece, then gaining perspective on what does happiness look like for you is a lot easier. And if you go all the way back to when anyone that is listening or watching this right now was a child, there was a moment where you asked yourself, where you asked your parents on an ongoing basis, why? I can picture your parents right now, Blake. I picture them right now in my mind. And I imagine little Blake going, why do I have to, why? And that question plagues human beings in phases as we go through our life. We get very distracted in certain phases, that question doesn't come up. And then we go through some type of personal crisis, it comes up again. And so the question of why am I here and why should anyone care is fundamental to me to being a human on this planet at this time. And kind of helping the idea of combining the desire to help people move forward with understanding what is perhaps one of the greatest questions that faces us fascinated me. So I wrote my first article on what is your why in 1999 in that magazine that you referenced that we ended up pausing permanently. And it became a fascination for me. So let's get into the why. What is your why? Why are you here? Why should anyone care? Why should anybody listen to you? Why should anybody pay attention? Does it even matter? Do you care? What's that look like? And then it became, oh, this is all fine and good, but it's largely theoretical. And if anybody wants to get super heady, then you can go read Immanuel Kant and get a headache trying to get through the denseness of the material, but there's no deliverable. What is the thing that helps you live a little bit better? So long story short, through the process of doing personal development and working with Jim Rohn and others, it became, what can I give to the world that helps people understand their own life more profoundly, more thoroughly, such that they then can take action on that in a positive way. And that's the backstory to where Mind Types came from. Basically 13 years ago is when I really got serious about it.
I mean, it's a long time. And I remember, I mean, you've been on the question why for as long as I can remember, and I think last time we connected actually in person, you dropped by my place. You're out here in California and you gave me this one. Yep. So the why engine, which I know you're doing a lot of work for individuals and companies on that question. But even before the books, like if I go way back, I mean, you were putting that into my mind, right? And in my community's mind when I was 21 years old. And I remember that hitting really, really hard of like, yeah, well, why am I going to college? Why do I want to be a lawyer? Why am I building the resume? Why am I supposed to go get this job? Like, yeah, why? and I remember it was like a big pivot for me. It was like, and I realized at some point, I don't know the exact defining moment, but it was at some point during that period where the only answer I had when I asked myself why was, well, isn't this what I'm supposed to do? Right. And I had like no other answer other than I was living a life because I was supposed to. And it's what my parents had thought or my teachers had thought or what society. And I was like, that was a turning point for me when I was like, I'm not going to spend my life chasing supposed to. I mean, what's your thoughts on that? This like supposed to concept that so many people are still stuck in today?
Yeah, I think there's two parts to it, man. One is that you fall into a job because you got to pay rent. And that's sad. And then you fall into, I have a job because I got to pay rent. And now I'm tired at the end of the day. So now I'm going to watch TV or I'm going to zone out or I'm going to do this or I'm going to distract myself in one way or another. And it's kind of crazy to me that some of the most highly paid people in the world are professional distractors. Athletes are professional distractors. You are never going to do what they do. Actors are professional distractors. Musicians are professional distractors. It's a little crazy. And by the way, I'm not taking anything away from those people. Their commitment to what they've done is amazing. And I love all of it. I love sports. I love movies. I love music. But when you break it down, those people are all professional distractors. They're going to take you away from whatever it is that you are doing. That's not enough. You've got to ask yourself, what do you want to do? What are you passionate about? What do you care about? Even such a big question as this, and I love asking people this question, can you define what does happy look like for you? So for me, here's my definition, super simple. I spend a month of it every year on the slopes skiing, a month of the year snorkeling with my beautiful wife that I cherish and adore, and 10 months a year in service to others. And if I ask people, what's your definition of happiness? Super hard for them to come up with a definition. What's your number? What do you mean, what's my number? Well, what's enough? I don't know. Well, why don't you know? Why wouldn't you know? Why wouldn't you want to have a fixed target or a goal to work towards so that you know, once I hit this target, I don't have to go chasing some holy grail that doesn't even matter to me anymore? How do we get some clarity in our mind? Why am I here? And what do I really care about? And stop the noise that is going on, the stuff that is occupying rent-free space in your mind, day in, day out, that doesn't serve you. So I know that was a rambling kind of answer, brother, and I apologize, but it's kind of like, wait, man, stop, pause. What do you really care about? What do you want to do? What are you passionate about? What do you wake up in the morning and get excited about doing? And does your job feel like fun, or at least worthwhile and worthy, or is it just a grind? Because you know what? If you go to a grind every day, you get ground down. And that's not a place that I really want to hang out.
It ain't rambling, Ridge. You're giving me goosebumps. I mean, it's the reality. So I mean, let's unpack that. So I think everybody that is listening to this or will listen to this, if we all do check in with ourselves and are honest with ourselves, like we all slip into, I call it this supposed to. You reference supposed to. Maybe another word would be expectations, of others, or expectations around us, or what we perceived maybe even those expectations to be. For people to break out of that, do you think it starts with that question? Does it start working backwards from happiness? Is happiness the ultimate end game? Do you think? Like, is that in your mind the start where someone would start if they have that epiphany, that defining moment of, yeah, I'm not living a life of my own, I want to make a shift. Okay, now what? Do you think it starts with that question?
Okay, so talking to Blake here, so we get to go deeper here. So let me introduce another concept. What if you could view altruism as enlightened greed? Like that there's a recognition that when you serve others and when you act in service, because of the karmic relationship of cause and effect, there is going to be a payback to you. And therefore, you can act through enlightened greed. In other words, I have desires. I want to be happy. I have desires. I want to be successful. Therefore, I'm going to invest a lot of time and energy serving other people because I know it's going to come back to me. Now, I'm not talking about negotiating with the universe because I think it's a really bad idea. I resigned as general manager of the universe a long time ago. Really good move. I would recommend it for a lot of people because if you think, oh, well, if I just do this, then this. If I just do this, then this. It doesn't really work that way. But on a bigger level, if you have an understanding that serving others is always going to yield a result, leading others, becoming a leader that is more capable of taking care of more people is always going to yield a result. And how do you get yourself from a space of little tiny me to expansive me that is still just as enjoyable, but in service to the community that you're a part of, is super significant. Because when you get to that space, it's always accretive. I invest more, I gain more. I invest more, I gain more. I get up in the morning, I'm excited. Why am I excited? Because I'm investing and I'm gaining back. And it's okay. And there's this dynamic, this flow that is happening on an ongoing basis. So yes, asking the question, what does happiness look like for me? That may be too far of a reach for a lot of people, because that's A lot of people may be in a space of, I just need to get through the month. But having a recognition that when you serve and when you invest, there's going to be a return, and beginning to act from that space creates this enlightened greed perspective that I kind of find entertaining, at least, So like, okay, I'm giving, but I know it's all good this way too.
I love it because it's like you got both ends of the spectrum, right? So happiness is kind of like start from the end and work backwards. And that's a powerful question you asked. And I know everybody, when you asked it, is saying, like, how would I answer that? But I love the service because that's something everybody can do and can do now, even if it's just beginning with one step or two steps. Like, how can I add value to others? How can I serve others? And I think those two can kind of meet in the middle. Like if you serve others and it does reciprocate, you're probably going to get closer to an outcome of what happiness really feels like. But what I think I heard you say, I think it's like, you can't just serve because of what you think you're going to get. You got to serve because you have an intention really to serve, but it's okay to also know if you serve with the right intention, it will come back to you. Did I catch that up? Did I catch that right?
100%. That's exactly right. That's why I called it, it's a loving term, right? I just came up with this. I don't know where I came up with this, but the idea of enlightened greed, that, hey, I can be greedy about what I want as long as I serve enough people. Zig Ziglar said that. There's no end to how successful you can be if you don't care about who gives the credit, who gets the credit, and how much you serve others, right? And so to do that on an ongoing basis, that becomes who you are, turns into amazing kinds of results. And to me, the question of what is happiness is a big one. Took me a long time to define it the way I do. But how can I be happier? Well, serve more people, be intentional. That one of the things I learned literally 3-4 weeks ago was I was having a conversation, because as you know, I'm a geek and I'm always studying. Right now I'm in a program at DePaul. I'm getting another master's degree in global citizenship. And I was in a conversation with one of my professors, younger than me, right? And she was telling me she's a PhD in dialogue. She's a dialogic expert. And she said to me, she said, you know what I realized? And it was just recent, after all this time studying dialogues, that this conversation, like this conversation that you, Blake Mallon, and I are having right now, is never, ever going to repeat itself. It is a once in a lifetime situation. The time that we have together right now is super precious, and then it's gone and can never be recovered. And therefore, this moment is in fact a moment of magic. What if everyone listening to this right now were to walk out of this conversation and have the intention that from this point forward, every conversation I have, every dialogue or exchange that I have with someone is a moment of magic? Think about how much magic you would be contributing to the world. And that's an easy thing to do. Ever since I heard that, I'm holding that intention with every dialogue I have.
I love that. And it's so simple, but so profound. I saw someone post on social media, you're triggering my Raz here. I think it was today, and I'll probably butcher it exactly, but it said something like, what if we stopped judging our days by how much stuff we got done, and we started judging our days by how present we were with what we did? And that's kind of like what you're saying, is so many people, they're in conversations and their mind's 3 steps ahead, or what happened yesterday or what could happen tomorrow, and they're missing the moment. And, that's all we really have. And hopefully one blessing that comes out of this whole mess of a year is maybe the realization that, like, connection does matter. Relationships do matter. Time with loved ones do matter. But I love what you said, the power of just the dialogue in this conversation only happening once, and we need to value it as such. Let me ask you this, Reg, so it sounds so simple. Okay, well, why? Like, why? Okay, ask yourself why. We all go through the realization, like, yeah, at some point, it's like we're living a life that it wasn't even our own. We're living a life of supposed to, or an expectation. And then we can do these exercises, which we all should, right? What is happiness? How can we serve? This is valuable stuff we should all implement into our life. But I'm going to ask, like, the realist question of, like, why the heck is it so hard? Like, so why does it sound so simple, right? Figure out who you are, figure out what drives you, figure out how you can serve, figure out what makes you happy. Yet we then get immediately sucked back into running the rat race, following the supposed to, following the script. Why do you think it's so difficult today?
So I bought my dad's Mercedes Benz, an old Benz, 1990 Benz, right? The 220 CE, black with a tan interior. It looks like a mob car out of Chicago, right? It's this giant Benz. I don't know if you ever saw it. It's like black Benz with the interior, right? And it was maintained super well, and I still maintain it super well. And my kids say to me, Dad, when are you going to get a new car? And my answer is, why do I need a new car? And they say, well, because your car is old. And I say, well, but I like my car and it serves all of my purposes. So why do I need a new car? Well, Dad, you just have such an old car. Yeah, you're right. I have an old car and I don't need a new car and I don't need another suit. I might need another pair of red shoes. We can talk about that maybe.
But I remember those red shoes.
I have an entire closet of them behind this backdrop. and there's such an expectation that is placed by what we listen to, what we pay attention to, the influx of nonstop barrage of data through media, social media, mass media, all media, shaping what we think we're supposed to have or be or do in order to actually enjoy life, this fleeting thing that every day that goes by is a day you no longer have to enjoy. And so I think that, Jim Rohn used to say, everything is determined by your philosophy. Your philosophy comes from what you look at, what you listen to, who you hang out with, what you read. And oh, by the way, the people who don't read are no better than the people who can't, right? So it's kind of a deep statement. And to me, to stop all that outside noise, maybe take a media break for a week and see where you are. I'm taking a media break for 2 days, starting tomorrow, getting off the political grid, out of here with my wife, doing the thing, we're disconnecting. More importantly, though, I'm not really on much of a grid anyway, because I'm choosing who it is that I'm listening to, what am I watching, who am I hanging out with, and what am I allowing into this vessel called me? As I would encourage everyone to pay attention to what you're allowing into your vessel. Because if trash is all that's coming in, then you can kind of figure out what's going to come out, as opposed to making a choice. Listen to the great ones. Pay attention. Who do I really relate to? Can I get a little closer to that person? Who could I hang out with to emulate what they're doing if I admire them in some way? It's not that complicated. It's just that people get so sucked into it because there's so much of it thrown at us, I believe.
I know you said that you don't watch a whole lot of television or Netflix, but I'm going to ask, have you happened to see The Social Dilemma yet? It's a documentary on Netflix. Have you heard of this one?
So I have had at least 5 people in the last 3 weeks tell me that I must see this. So I'm going to cave and check it out. It's a good documentary. It's definitely, extreme to one side, but it's exactly what we're talking about here. And the thing that scared me most was just how many, C-level executives from the biggest social media platforms that are on there basically, saying, 2 things. They're saying, yeah, we did all of this, but we never stopped and asked ourselves, should we do all of this? Yeah, we designed the platforms to make them addictive, to make people want to log in, to monopolize time, to get people to want to engage, right? And it was the whole ethics conversation of, we did this to get people on the platform, but nobody said, should we be doing this? Is it good for us? And when a couple of them are like saying they don't let their kids, these are the people that design the systems, they don't let their kids on the platforms, it's eye-opening. And there's one fact in there, Ridge, it scared the heck out of me. It trended depression rates and suicide rates generation to generation, and mapped the increase of suicide rates when you get down into like Generation Z to the growth of online social media usage. It was scary. Yeah, and I get it. How many of us are literally, I hate the fact that there's now a problem with necks, and the problem with necks comes from this, right? From staring at the device all the time. wait a second, man, take a walk outside. You know what's kind of weird? This will be back available to you as soon as you come back from your walk. You can actually leave it behind. I know it's crazy, but you can actually put this thing in your office and leave it there overnight, and you don't have to put it on your bedside table like at all. I know it's weird, but I'm telling you, you might even get used to it. Just saying.
Oh man. And it's so true. And we all know it to be true. And yet it's still so hard. And I'm sure half of you, when Ridge said, go for a walk and leave it at home, you already started going into convulsions. It's a crazy world. So my question to you, like, talk to me about mind types, right? We got these avatars. I understand the concept. I went through it. I spent some time on it. You know, how is this a tool for us as people, or how is this a tool for us as marketers or entrepreneurs? You know, how can we use what you put together here maybe to solve some of the stuff we're in the middle of?
So that's a lot there. So two big questions there. One is, how's it a tool for me? And two, how's it a tool to attract others to me, right? Two big questions. So the first big question is, knowing yourself is really kind of key, because no one wants to play to their weakness and everyone enjoys playing to their strengths. And it doesn't matter what you do. If you're stuck in a role that causes you to play to your weaknesses, life is pretty miserable. If you're stuck if you have a role and you enjoy a role where you're playing to your strengths on an ongoing basis, then life is a beautiful thing. It's enjoyable, it's fun, it's cool. So knowing who you are and what you're really good at is kind of pretty important. So I created this system. There are 7 mind types, and each one of them has a superpower and a kryptonite. And what you want to do is maximize your superpower, minimize your kryptonite. Of course, that's going to make you more successful from a financial perspective. But from my perspective, it's also going to make you a lot happier when you know who you are and you're playing to your strengths on an ongoing basis. Life is grand. Second point. So that's part one of why should you know about you? Well, first of all, I think that's pretty fundamental, but basically there's a brief explanation. Second point is, if you have a product or a service or a gift, and I'm going to hold the intention and make the declaration that every single person listening or watching this information right now has an amazing gift inside of them. If you do not know how to express who you are, no one is ever going to find out about your gift. Because here's a premise that in today's world is even more important than ever. Nobody buys your product, nobody buys your service unless they buy you first. They got to buy, what do you stand for? What are you about? Do I feel good about spending my time with you? Is there something here that I'm going to relate to on a human level? Trust and connection is the number one reason why anybody buys anything or joins any kind of a cause. So no matter how talented you are, no matter how amazing your gift may be, if you don't know how to express you to the world successfully, sorry, man, nobody's ever going to find out about it. So the two reasons why knowing your mind type, and more importantly, or as important, knowing how to express your mind type is, number one, you got to know you. And number two, you got to know how to tell the world who you are. And what
I love that. Yeah, I love that. And it always starts with self-awareness, right? So, and that's something just I've learned. And I'm always someone that if there's a new tool or something that can like help me better understand me, as silly as that sounds, I always find them hugely beneficial. And it makes sense. And I'm a huge believer that, hey, if you can stay in your gift zone, right, stay and focus on your strengths, you're going to go further, faster, and you're going to be happier doing it, which sounds obvious, but most people spend every day outside their gift zone doing things that aren't tapping into their talents and then wondering why they do feel burned out. Like, you got to make that shift. So, I think Mind Types is a great tool that kind of points you in the direction. I'm going to put you on the spot.
Well, let me give you an example real quick. Let me just,
okay, yeah, go for
water, right? I'm holding the water right here. So when people talk about what they do, what they sell, or what they offer, they're speaking to the thinking brain, and it motivates nobody to buy a product. You know what people do? They think about it. When you talk about what you believe or what you stand for, you talk to the decision-making brain or the feeling brain. So here's an example. I've got a water, right? So Here's what almost all water marketing sounds like. At ABC Water, we've got the purest water from the deepest stream with all the vitamins, minerals, and antioxidants that you need to hydrate your body, even after a long workout. Want to buy some? And motivates nobody to buy ABC Water over DCE water or XYZ water. However, if I talk about what I stand for, listen to how different this sounds. Actually, check in with yourself to how it feels. At our water, we believe that the body is a temple and only the finest ingredients should ever be put into it. We have the finest water from the deepest stream with all the antioxidants, vitamins, and minerals that you need to hydrate your body. Want to join the cause? It's miraculously different. You feel the difference. Not everybody's going to want to join our water. Not everybody cares about the body being a temple, but those that do, they're going to seek out our water. They're going to ask for our water. They're going to bug the manager for our water, and they're going to become raving fans for our water forever. That's the difference between expressing who you are and what you stand for, as opposed to what you sell and what you offer that nobody cares about because somebody else does it too.
I love that. And even in your example, like I felt the difference. I'm sure every one of you listening felt the difference. And, you know, what I'm hearing is to accomplish that, you need to have both sides. You need to know where you're coming from, and then also be able to articulate it, right? And that's where I guess that business side comes in, or that, you know, marketing or messaging lens. And talk to us about this whole concept of, you know, I think you called it limbic messaging. I'm fascinated by the concept.
Okay. So around the perimeter up here in the brain, if you look at a cross section from above, you have the neocortex. Most people call that the thinking brain. It's responsible for logic, data, information, features, benefits, speech, word, and language. The fact that we understand each other right now is because of the neocortex, obviously quite important. However, the neocortex makes no decisions. Decisions are made in the heart of the brain, or in the feeling brain, which is called the limbic brain. So we make decisions based on the feeling or limbic brain, and then we justify them in logic through the neocortex or thinking brain. Think about this. How many times have you had this experience, Blake? All the data and information points to making this decision at this moment, and at the very last second you go, no, that doesn't feel right. And you back out of that decision. That's your limbic decision-making brain with its own intelligence saying, not the right space for you. So when talking about messaging and wanting to attract people to you, to become a magnet for ideal clients, ideal people for your business, you want to think in terms of how much can I speak to the limbic decision-making brain, not the thinking brain. The message that I gave you for ABC Water was a neocortex thinking brain message. This is what we do. This is what we have. This is what we offer. When we talked about feel that the body is a temple, now it's a limbic message or a feeling brain message. That's where you get the juice. That's where you get the real power as a marketer or as an entrepreneur.
I love it. And for me, I get excited about this stuff because it's like the two things I'm personally passionate about, the self-development, self-awareness side, but then the marketing side, which is a way that you bring your passion to the world. You got to be able to break through the noise today. I mean, there's so much stuff out there. So I find the concept fascinating. I went through it. You know, I resonated with the innovator. I resonated with the perfectionist. You could probably guess. And then I know you're laughing. And then ultimately ended up being a problem solver, which made a lot of sense, and obviously kind of why I do what I do. How about you? What's your avatar?
So problem solver, primary, giver, secondary. And it makes sense to me that obviously you being a guy who's always looking for a better way would clearly resonate with the innovator, right? But of course, doing things properly, doing things right has been your way also. Therefore, you clearly resonate with the perfectionist. And at the end of the day, what you do for a living is constantly solving problems, right? So all those three, the order of which is primary, I'll leave you to figure that one out, my man. Because I'm still torn on that one. I think you are so often looking for a better way that it could be like the push
to
me,
be
pull
honest with
me,
you, I was torn on it. I was going to put you on the spot and say, like, what am I? Because you know me pretty well. But yeah, I was torn.
Well, let me ask you. I'll tell you what. We can do that real quick. I'll ask you a question. Is it more important for you to find a better way to do things because, hey, that's just what you do, or to figure out how to do things, and one of the things that you do is find better ways of doing things?
My natural modality is to always see better. Like I don't have to try